The trial of a former Uvalde CISD police officer continues today after a legal snag. It started on day one of testimony after the defense accused the prosecution of withholding evidence. Now, the judge disagreed and rejected the defense motion for mistrial. Judge Sid Harrell says the Uvalde County District Attorney's actions were not intentional but negligent. So the jury is back in the Nueces County Courthouse this morning. Gonzalez is charged with 29 counts of child endangerment, accused of putting children in danger for failing to engage the shooter. That shooter ended up killing 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School back in May of 2022. Now, this case marks the second time in U.S. history that prosecutors have sought to hold a member of law enforcement criminally accountable for their response for a mass shooting. It is a first for Texas. ABC's Peter Haralambous is covering the trial for us. He joins us live from Corpus Christi. And Peter, good morning, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Peter, what has the jury heard so far today?
Yeah, so the jury has heard some more testimony from the witness at the center of that legal dispute. This is a former third-grade teacher at Robb Elementary, Stephanie Hale. She was someone who testified about seeing the shooter shooting towards her students on the playground at Robb Elementary. She said her and her students ran inside the school, found shelter in the classroom, and armed themselves with safety scissors. Now, the dispute about this testimony is what nearly caused a mistrial. This morning, prosecutors and defense attorneys tried to settle that dispute. At the end of the day, the judge actually instructed the jury to basically ignore everything that Ms. Hale said. At the end of the day, he apologized to the witness, said it wasn't her fault that her testimony was being thrown out, but rather the prosecutors. The prosecutors allegedly failed to disclose some key changes in her testimony. She's really a vital witness for prosecutors, so it's a major setback for them, even if it didn't result in a mistrial, as defense attorneys requested yesterday.
But defense attorneys still get to interview that teacher, right, Peter?
That's right. So they did some pretty strong cross-examination where they basically pointed out everything she said on Tuesday in court and compared it to what she originally told state investigators just 4 days after the shooting. It got to one point this morning where they actually played a recording of that 2022 interview to show the jury how much the testimony had changed. That was their attempt to kind of salvage this point on their part. And at the end of the day, the judge agreed that the testimony had changed enough and it hadn't been disclosed, so that he instructed the jury to just basically forget about what that witness had told them. We're now on the second witness for the day. This is a former after-school coordinator at Robb Elementary, Mirelia Marin Franco. She's inside court right now testifying about making a frantic 911 call and then hiding from this shooter.
Peter, this is the first time in Texas that prosecutors are trying to hold law enforcement criminally responsible for a response to a mass shooting. What have prosecutors told you about that challenge?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, these are relatively unprecedented cases, in that you're talking about holding 1 or 2 officers in this case accountable for a very broad, if not massive, police response. We're talking about nearly 400 officers. The case they're making here is that this particular police officer, Adrian Gonzalez, had advance notice from one of the teachers about where the shooter was and had one of the most unique and most compelling opportunities that day to stop the shooting as it played out. But he allegedly failed in that response. That being said, even if they could point that out and make that case, it's a very high bar for prosecutors. The last time we saw this kind of prosecution play out, it was after the Parkland shooting, and that ultimately led to a full acquittal for a sheriff's deputy who was charged with a very similar offense.
That's right, Peter. That wasn't that long ago. That was in 2023. Peter Haralambous with ABC News. Thank you so much for covering this trial for us.
Thank you.